Hello, we're back again to talk about the picture of Dorian Gray. This time we're covering chapter 4. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm a teacher and author, and this is English Nerd. So if you haven't already gone to my website, carly-stevens.com, to look for more Dorian Gray teaching resources, I would definitely recommend it. I have an entire teaching unit on there, as well as the Dorian Gray reader, which has the entire text of the story along with some paired readings too. So if you're getting impatient, since I'm only releasing about a chapter a week of this summary and analysis, then head on over there and you can find even more. All right, so chapter 4. Last time, Dorian has seen his picture, of course. He's basically done that deal with the devil. We haven't seen the effects of it yet, but he says that he would give his soul to be as young and beautiful as that picture depicts him, forever and ever, and not to grow old. The chapter that we looked at last time was Lord Henry starting to do some very intentional research and groundwork in influencing Dorian. So now we're in chapter 4. It is a month later, so Lord Henry has gotten his hooks into Dorian, and a month has gone by. Dorian Gray very regularly spends some time with Lord Henry. So in Lord Henry Wotton's house, there is blue china, which is only noteworthy because Oscar Wilde, one of the founders of the aesthetic movement, this idea that beauty was supreme, that there didn't need to be any deeper meaning behind beauty for it to be the best and most significant thing there is. One of the symbols of the aesthetic movement was blue china. In fact, you can find different quotations from Oscar Wilde mentioning that he wants to live up to his blue china, and what he means is that sense of beauty for its own sake, or at least that's the most common way that that's interpreted. So there are these large blue china jars around Dorian as he's lounging at Lord Henry, reading this opera about forbidden love, where both of the main characters die. This is very on brand for Dorian and for Lord Henry, actually. Just that sense of the incredibly dramatic. And that's going to come into play later in this chapter as well. So instead of Lord Henry walking in, it is actually Lord Henry's wife. In my notes here in this funky version, I just have an exclamation point, like Lord Henry has a wife. I guess he's wealthy enough to provide for one, but poor Mrs. Henry Wotton, they call her Lady Henry, which is a little perplexing to me. Wouldn't it be Lady Wotton? But if you know anything about the naming conventions, I would like to know down in the comments why she's called Lady Henry and not Lady Wotton. What we learn from Lord Henry's wife here is that Lord Henry is obsessed with Dorian, not in the way that Basil the painter is obsessed with Dorian, in this kind of loving way where he thinks of Dorian as his artistic muse, but instead this stalkerish way. So Mrs. Henry Wotton says, "I know you quite well by your photographs. I think my husband has got 17 of them." 17 photographs of Dorian? This is stalker behavior, people. If somebody has, and photographs of course were rarer in the 1890s than they are today. If somebody has that many photos of you just around the house, then that's a bit of a red flag. But she doesn't seem to see it that way. She says, "Oh yeah, I know you're friends with my husband, and you should definitely come to one of our dinner parties." So let's skip ahead here. I could talk about so many different juicy lines. There are so many just epigrams in Oscar Wilde's writings, but again, we're going to move right ahead. So Lord Henry does come in and Dorian says, he confesses that he is in love. He's in love for the first time. This is a big development, and Lord Henry is fascinated to know more. Who could have captured the attention of this fiery creature, of Dorian Gray? So we're introduced not directly. We'll actually meet her in the next chapter, but we hear about Sybil Vane, the actress. Now let's pause for a second and talk about her name for a moment. So Sybil Vane. Sybil is actually a word for a seer, a sort of prophetess, somebody who foretells the future. And then vane can be taken in two ways. It's spelled V-A-N-E, like a weather vane, but of course it sounds like vain as in vanity as well. I think we're meant to hear all of those echoes of meaning in Sybil Vane's name, because what happens with Dorian's relationship with Sybil Vane really foretells the future direction of his entire life. So not every name in this story, like I've said, has some deeper meaning. I'm not going to go name by name, but this is a very clear indication of one that we're supposed to look a bit deeper into. So Sybil Vane is who Dorian likes. In this chapter, there are some things that are definitely cringy to the modern reader. So if you're reading along with me and you thought, what the heck, in this chapter, because of Lord Henry's views on women that he gives, which are very degrading and outdated, or once Dorian starts talking about how he encountered Sybil Vane, the actress, in this kind of two-bit theater, we do get some not so casual racism there as well, which was typical of the time. I'm not going to excuse it by saying it was typical of the time, but I'm not going to spend time harping too much on it either. I say just to let your eyes go over the page and move right on past it. So anyway, the moment that Dorian meets Sybil Vane, let's dive into that a bit, because the way he talks about Sybil Vane and what he was looking for and what he noticed first and what he kind of gets from her that makes him excited and full of anticipation for what their future could hold is very telling of him as a person. So he says what led him into this theater was that there was an exquisite poison in the air. I had a passion for sensations. Well, one evening about 7 o'clock, I determined to go out in search of some adventure. So he is listening for a month to Lord Henry's morally bankrupt but very sparkly ideas about grabbing every sensation and only beating temptation, as it were, by giving into it. And so Dorian's leaning into all of his impulses. He is searching for a variety of sensations. He just wants to feel good or bad. So he decides he's going to go out and to try to search for some kind of beauty, whether in kind of a standard way or an unorthodox way. That leads him into this theater. So he is craving sensation, he's craving beauty and passion and leaning into just all that sensations and impulse kind of have to offer. And it's then that he sees this very young Sybil Vane. He says that she is hardly more than 17, which is another thing that is quite cringy to the modern reader. But remember, Dorian is he's 3 years older than Sybil Vane, so it's not a humongous age difference. There also it was much more common for younger, very young women to get married at the time. Getting married at 17 wasn't this shocking thing at the time, like it certainly would be now, with lifespans being longer and all of that. So Dorian sees this person who's playing Juliet. How apropos. She's playing Juliet alongside, across from this middle-aged, paunchy Romeo. So she stands out like this lily, another symbol of the aesthetic movement, among all of these inferior, uglier, remember that matters to Dorian, physical beauty, people. So he sees her, and let's just look at some of the language that he uses. She was the loveliest thing I had ever seen in my life. You, Henry, said to me once that pathos left you unmoved, but that beauty, mere beauty, could fill your eyes with tears. I tell you, Harry, I could hardly see this girl for the mist of tears that came across me. And her voice, I never heard such a voice. Ooh, okay. So, of course, this is an innocent way to encounter a person and kind of to have a crush, right? Like having a crush on a TV star. That's not unusual. However, the things that draw him to her initially are the beauty, her physical beauty, and the beauty of her voice. She offers these beautiful sensations visually, to his ears, and that is the first glimpse that we see into why he's drawn to her. But then he goes on. The way he talks about her is more as this vessel for beautiful experience than as a person in her own right. So she is beautiful in a variety of ways. She is a good actress as well. He thinks she plays Juliet, she plays Ophelia, she plays Desdemona, she plays all these Shakespearean heroines to great effect. So for Dorian, Sybil Vane is not Sybil Vane. She's not herself. She is, like I said, this vessel for beautiful experience. She is Juliet. She is Ophelia. She is these different other people. Now, something else worth noting is that Dorian is not particularly interested in actually encountering Sybil Vane in person, not as a spectator, but as a person. There are two ways that this reveals itself in the chapter. So first of all, Lord Henry says, what are your actual relations with Sybil Vane? He's implying that Dorian has been untoward with Sybil Vane already, to which Dorian replies, Harry, Sybil Vane is sacred. Sacred. It's like he's idolizing her and putting her up on this pedestal that no human being can really live up to. It's like the haze that you see when you observe something far off. That's what Dorian is experiencing with Sybil Vane. So according to the morality of the time, Dorian is certainly in the right, saying, no, I would not sleep with Sybil. I would not, sully her like that. But then he takes it a step farther. He keeps going to the theater, and so he's invited to meet Sybil Vane backstage. And it says, he explains to Lord Henry, I was furious with him and told him that Juliet had been dead for hundreds of years and that her body was lying in a marble tomb in Verona. So he doesn't want to meet Sybil Vane because he's not in love with Sybil Vane. He's in love with the experience that she can offer him. She embodies Juliet. She is Juliet. It's like he has this ever-changing catalog of lovely people to admire night after night at the theater. So he's like, no, I don't want to meet Juliet. Juliet is dead. So it's Sybil Vane that he is not interested in knowing. He wants to know her as Ophelia, as Desdemona, etc. But he finally does give in. He finally does meet her, and she also treats him like this fantasy. For Dorian, Sybil is a fantasy. She is this set of Shakespearean heroines. She's more than herself. She's like this goddess. And for Sybil, Dorian is Prince Charming. That's what she calls him. You look more like a prince. I must call you Prince Charming, she says. So she is similar to Dorian in that way. I'm going to idealize you. I'm going to make you into a fantasy as well. So neither one really knows the other in any personal sense, but they're vehicles for their fantasies. So yeah, that's going to come into play as this relationship progresses. Just a side note, Oscar Wilde's mother was an actress, and so make of that what you will. A few more quotations to really drive home the point that I'm trying to make, that Dorian is not in love with Sybil Vane. He's in love with the idea of Sybil Vane. He explains, tonight she is Imogen, tomorrow night she'll be Juliet. Henry asks, when is she Sybil Vane? Never. And Lord Henry is very pleased by this. He thinks it's a fascinating development as he inspects Dorian's life and tries to influence and control him. He's not upset one bit that this is not true love. I don't know that Lord Henry even believes in true love. He says some pretty nasty things about even the idea of it. But Dorian is convinced that he loves Sybil. He says, she is more than an individual. You laugh, but I tell you she has genius. I love her, and I must make her love me. You, who know all the secrets of life, tell me how to charm Sybil Vane to love me. I want to make Romeo jealous. I want the dead lovers of the world to hear our laughter and grow sad. I want a breath of our passion to stir their dust into consciousness, to wake their ashes into pain. My God, Harry, how I worship her. Ooh, this is another level that shows the tenor of Dorian's love for Sybil Vane. Not only does he see her as this goddess, he worships her, but there's a sense where he wants to dominate her and everyone around her as well. To be satisfied, he would need to cause pain to others who could not be with her. He says he wants to make Romeo jealous. He wants to stir ashes into pain. He wants the dead lovers to grow sad because they didn't have what he and Sybil have. It's not joy that he's after. It's the pain of others as they observe how intense the connection is and the ownership is of Sybil and Dorian. So this is not healthy. This is very dangerous. Hopefully you see that. If you don't, then consider this an example of a very dangerous type of obsessive relationship starting to form here. Not only is Dorian wishing for the jealousy of others, but he himself is jealous as well. He starts to say, I'm a little jealous of the portrait which has, my picture which has been sent to me by this point, and how it's a month younger than I am. Dorian has some issues with priorities, which I hope will become clearer and clearer. Dorian has pretty much stopped spending any time with Basil. Instead, he spends all of his time with Lord Henry. So Dorian leaves, and Lord Henry, when he's alone, is pretty honest with himself about how he enjoys vivisecting others and how he thinks that the only area of study that's worthwhile is humanity, human behavior. And so he's very curious about how Dorian, whom he views as an experiment, will turn out. So Henry doesn't really see Dorian as a person either. He's this grand experiment, this, putty in his hands, as it were. So to bring us to the end of the chapter now, we get the shocking news, the mic drop news, that very day Lord Henry is getting ready to go and see Sybil Vane. He agreed to go with Dorian, but he gets the news that Dorian is now engaged to be married to Sybil Vane. Dun dun dun. We as the audience should be concerned by this. All right, so make sure that you stay tuned for the next several weeks. I'm going to be posting more than one video a week, so if you're not really needing or wanting an in-depth walkthrough of the picture of Dorian Gray, there will still be content for you to take a look at. Again, go to my website, carly-stevens.com, for more Dorian Gray material and other kinds of things for your English classroom. If you've been enjoying this and the hundreds of other videos on the channel, do consider leaving me a tip via the thanks button down below. All right, until next time.